Okay, now it's working. For some reason, the microphone wasn't listed in the devices.
So this one wasn't working, oddly.
Yeah.
Wonder why.
I don't know. But let's start over. Hi, this is A Mirror Darkly Unbridled Inquiry. This is Robin. I'm Ruth. And here's Oreo. And we're here with Why Do You Fear Change? Yay! So Steve says he's got us. Yeah, there was music for a second because we were seeing if music worked.
Yeah.
So we knew sound would go through it. We just weren't sure why this sound wouldn't go through it.
For whatever reason, the normal audio input thing here was not picking up the microphone.
Yep. So our big announcement is that tomorrow Robin is going to be ordained as full-time pastor of our church. He's been interim pastor for 6 years, and they finally decided to call him as the full-time pastor. So
they decided they couldn't find anybody else. So.
And we're also ordaining a deacon too, because that's something that Southern Baptists do, is we ordain our deacons. Yeah. So if you are interested in participating, like by watching, not necessarily participating.
Yes.
But if you're interested in watching, join us tomorrow at 11 a.m. Pacific time. If you're in the area and you want some free food, come on over. Join us for the ordination, and there's a catered lunch after.
Yes.
And like I said before, when you couldn't hear me, if you are not here in person and you want a catered lunch, there's always Grubhub. And but I'm not paying for it, so there you go. You have to pay for your own. So anyway, so that's the big announcement. And last week I wasn't here because my daughter invited me to go to her wedding dress fitting so I could see her wedding dress. So I was there at 5 o'clock and there wasn't time to do the webcast and get down there. So, and then I ended up watching my grandson all day, which, was torture, but you got to do what you got to do when you're an Anna, right?
Yeah.
So anyway, so we're talking about why do we fear change? And so we are going to start over talking about Prince William.
Yes, as an example of an idiot. But also as an example of someone who fears change, apparently. Part of the reason people fear change is ignorance, and that's reflected in the comments that Prince William made after William Shatner briefly went into space on a suborbital flight thanks to Blue Origin. He spent about 5 minutes in weightlessness and was quite moved by the experience, and then Prince William, for whatever reason, decided to criticize this and made the comment that billionaires should not be wasting their time sending people into space. They should be focused on solving problems here on Earth. And the amount of ignorance that's involved in that statement is remarkable. It reminds me why we had the revolution in 1776, so we don't have to listen to people like that. Of course, we have our own homegrown versions of them. But, one of the first thoughts that comes to one's mind when you hear that is you think to yourself, billionaires are only capable of doing one thing at a time, apparently. And apparently, Prince William is entirely unfamiliar with a person by the name of Elon Musk, who, besides sending people into space and sending other things into space, also is responsible for electric cars and solar panels and solar energy and power walls and a number of different things, Neuralink. The other thing that's weird about this is, what does Prince William imagine the billions of dollars, and it's not quite billions, that gets spent by the private companies on space? Where does that billions of dollars go? It's not being packed into barrels and shot into orbit. It's being spent here on Earth, employing a large number of people. SpaceX by itself employs about 10,000 people, good paying jobs. They may be overworked a bit, but they enjoy what they're doing for the most part, and they're the ones that are getting the money, and they're spending all the money here on Earth, last I checked.
Yep.
So
and what was William Shatner's reaction to what Prince William said?
William Shatner's reaction to what Prince William said was that Prince William is an ignorant person and doesn't know what he's talking about. So there is that. And this is the case. That is, anybody that criticizes private space flight, they're doing it because they don't understand. And this brings us to our topic of today, why do we fear change? That's largely a lot of it. People are afraid of new things because they don't understand them, because they scare them. The other thing, too, that I've noticed is people have different mindsets. Now, there's a tendency to imagine that it's old people mostly that always live in the past, while younger people are living in the present or thinking about the future. But as people get older, then they stop thinking about the present and the future and start thinking about the past all the time. I don't know that it's really an age-related thing. I mean, there are some old people that are that way, but I don't know that all old people are that way. Plus, not all young people seem to be thinking about the future all that much either. That is, I see some young people just as afraid of things that are new as some old people are, and just as reluctant to change or to try something that's different. I've talked about before, some of your colleagues, they finish college and then they never learn another new thing again for the rest of their lives because they've learned everything there is to know now. That's a weird mindset, but that is why you get people afraid of anything that's new, because they know it all and there's nothing new that can be done that's going to be better. The old ways are always better. I like the verse in Ecclesiastes chapter 7 verse 10, do not say, why were the old days better than these, for it's not wise to ask such questions. But people are afraid of anything that changes. We are creatures of habit, more so than we oftentimes recognize. Try altering your morning routine. Brush your teeth at a different point in your morning routine and see how good you feel about that. If when you shower, you'll notice that you probably wash the same side of your body to begin with every day.
You wash one side of your body first and then the other side?
People do it in different ways, or top or bottom.
Okay,
or
there you go.
Face.
I always wash my left side first, my right side, making sure I get the middle at some point. That sounded weird.
Okay, the point is that people go in an order.
Right. You start on a particular part of your body. And they will tend to go in a particular
pattern. They'll wash a certain part of their body first, and then move to the next, and so on. And it's always that same pattern. And the reason I say that is because I've noticed I will do that, and I'm assuming that I am not unique in that kind of behavior.
No, you are not. The Friends even had a short part of their episode on it when they were talking about soap as self-cleaning. It was Chandler and Joey. And then I think it was, Joey was making the argument for soap being self-cleaning, No, Chandler's making the argument for soap being self-cleaning, and Joey says, and just think about the last thing I washed and the first thing you washed. And no matter what you think the first and last things are, it's just still gross.
Yeah.
Yeah. We have separate soap. But he uses man soap. I use chick soap. So.
Yes. So, anyway. And that's the other thing, too. You'll tend to use the same products all the time. As we get very much into routine, and if they change the packaging on the product, you get annoyed. If they get rid of the product you like, you get annoyed. John Scalzi, science fiction author, likes Coke Zero. And they keep changing the formula on him. And so I read these blog posts every time that happens where he's trying the new stuff and comparing it to the old stuff and deciding, am I going to continue drinking this or not? And so they just changed the formula again, and he went through the same routine. And it's just amusing to me. He continues to drink Coke Zero despite the slight changes in the formula. He says it's not all that noticeable. But it's something that he thinks about because that's his routine. He drinks an enormous amount of Coke Zero every day. So keeps him awake, I guess, while he's writing. So we don't like alterations. If you go to Costco and they suddenly stop carrying something that you've been used to getting there, you get bothered by it. And so part of the reason that we don't like change is because we are creatures of habit. However, there are
You have to excuse all the coughing. He has allergies, and I'm getting over being sick.
Yes.
So neither of us have COVID.
No.
But the coughing is, I know,
we're
annoying.
both fully vaccinated with Moderna.
Every time you cough, though, the volume goes.
I'm sure it does.
Sorry, I interrupted you.
Yes, you did. Change.
Yes.
Change is an inevitable part of life. For myself, I rather enjoy technological change. It's something I like. Some people get really bothered every time they update Windows because I got used to doing it this way and now they've changed everything. Well, they haven't changed everything.
Right.
They change a little bit here and there. But you get improvements along the way.
Sometimes. With Windows, not always.
Not always.
They put something out, like, what is it? The odd numbered ones are always the bad versions, and the even numbered ones are the better versions of Windows, it seems like.
No, 95 was an odd.
Oh, okay.
7 was popular.
Okay.
But
Maybe
people
it's
like
the
10, which is an even number.
Okay.
11 is what's coming out.
Oh,
And the
people are
only
freaking
machine
out.
that we have in this building, or that I have access to, that is compatible with the upcoming Windows 11 is this machine here that we're using. The one in my office, it's not compatible with the CPU on it. My Surface, it's not compatible with CPU. Now, of course, I will acknowledge in both cases that my desktop machine in my office is 5 years old. My Surface is 6 years old. My machine at home is probably about 8 or 9 years old. So, I mean, I should be thankful they can even run Windows 10, I suppose. Because
I will say, I am not compatible with your Surface.
yeah, you've never liked
I
it.
despise that little machine.
Yes, this little machine here.
Yes. I hate
I
it.
like it.
It's terrible.
Well, you're not the one that has to use it now,
Yeah,
are
for a
you?
little while I had to, and
Yeah,
I was
well.
not a happy camper.
Yeah.
But here's the thing. It's not that I don't like new things. I don't like when things don't work the way they're supposed to.
This works the way it's supposed to.
No, it doesn't.
It works fine for me.
Fine. I require more of my technology, apparently.
Depends on what you're doing with it.
Well,
This is a secondary machine.
that
This
was
is not my primary
right,
machine.
and I was trying to use it in place of my laptop that had died.
Right.
And it was not a good fit at all.
Yeah. Okay.
Don't ask me to advertise for the Microsoft Surface because
Yes, you don't like
I'll
it.
plummet their sales really fast.
Yeah. So I'm going to have to do some changes here before too long. and update I mean, I've been thinking that I probably need to update my computers here pretty soon anyway, given how old they are. But they're working fine, and I'm careful with how I treat them, websites I visit. I have products that keep junk from accumulating, and so I mean, they work just fine for what I need.
Makes me crazy when my students just press the power button on their Chromebooks or just close the lid and think it's off. I tell them, no, you have to sign out. You have to go to the shutdown button on your screen, shut it down, wait till it goes dark, and then close it. They think that by pushing the power button, they've turned it off. No, all they've done is made it fall asleep. And it doesn't get its updates, it doesn't clean out its memory or anything. It's just sitting there using juice. And it makes me crazy.
But change is an important thing to adapt yourself to and to be able to handle. I would argue that those who cannot handle change are people that are not going to survive well. That is, from an evolutionary standpoint, species that are not able to adapt are species that die out. So you have to be able to handle the change. And change is one of the constants in our world. And particularly now, for the last 200 years, change has accelerated. And if you're not able to handle the change, you're going to get left behind. You're not going to be able to get as good a job. You're not going to be able to keep your job. You won't be able to adapt to circumstances that come up. So, for instance, with the pandemic, one of the things that you found with your colleagues is some of them had a great deal of difficulty adapting to that and moving to an online way of presenting the classes. They were resistant to it. And it's not just a matter of feeling uncomfortable with change, or being bothered by, oh, now I got to do something new. It's the resistance to it, the idea that, well, I'm not going to, pushing back against it. You can't push back against change.
Well, and like one of the teachers admitted to me that she wishes she had done more with technology before the pandemic because she had resisted doing much because her thing is kids shouldn't be in front of screens all day. Well, my kids aren't in front of screens all day, just part of the day.
Right.
But they're going to be in front of screens all day when they grow up and they get a job because most jobs require screens.
Yeah.
But anyway, she had resisted so much, and then the learning curve was still really steep even for me, and I'm an early adopter. So I already had the new whiteboard, but I hadn't learned it yet. They finally pushed out a really good training, and I can use it now. But I had gotten it early on the assumption that I would learn it myself and then teach others. Well, as it happened, I hadn't had time, and then the pandemic hit. So they gave us a training on it, and then I was ready to use it. But it was still a steep learning curve. Like I learned how to use video editor to push out videos to my kids that I created myself, and all kinds of things. And I already was familiar with most of the platforms and kind of how stuff like that works. So when I had to go to an online meeting every day, twice a day, and then I had to be able to share my screen and do all these things, that was the new stuff. But I already knew how to use the technology in isolation. Now it was just combining it with another new technology to educate children. And so it was a steep learning curve for me, and I worked harder last year than I've ever worked in my life. I was like a first-year teacher all over again. And so for people that had resisted it, that were like, oh, this isn't for me, I will retire before I really need this, and then all of a sudden they were thrown into the deep end with no swim fins and no snorkel.
Right.
And they were drowning, and it was really hard. And a lot of teachers retired as a result because they were just exhausted. So, yeah, it was a tough change.
And that's what resistance to change creates. Is if you're not willing to adapt and to embrace change, when change happens, and it will happen, you're going to have trouble getting through it.
Right. We came
churches.
we came to the end of a 10-minute segment, but we
Oh.
didn't have any questions or anything, so we're just going to go ahead and move on with the next
Yeah.
10 minutes. So go ahead.
Okay. Churches had this difficulty with the pandemic too in making the change to doing things online more. Thankfully, we had already started doing that. We had the software in place. We did find that our hardware was inadequate, and so we had to upgrade that. But at least we were already on that path. And so it was a pretty easy transition for us then.
It was interesting because during the pandemic, I was like kind of scouting other churches to see what they were doing, to see if anybody had something kind of slick and to find out what they were using. And I found out we were actually much farther along in the progression. Like really the only thing we could really use are robot cameras, but we would need more people to operate them.
And
right
more
now it's just
money.
me and more money.
Yeah.
But
Yeah,
anyway,
robot cameras would be nice.
outside of that, we were kind of at the top end of it. I mean, one church had a phone record showing what was on a laptop screen for the words and stuff for the music. So, like, we already had a monitor in the front, and so for a little while, I had to just project the words like full screen, like you didn't see anybody else. It was just the words. And then we got this software where I can put it in, kind of like the news has the little window there that shows the video and stuff
Yeah.
next to the newscaster. And so
Well, it's
that's how our
essentially the
services
same
run now.
software.
Right. So anyway, so we had gotten that, and we got that pre-pandemic. And so we were already set up with that. And
We
then
upgraded it to a better version so it could do high definition.
right. And but we were still pretty far. We were definitely far ahead of recording a laptop screen on a phone. So
Yes. At least we were already on the path and moving in that direction, so this just solidified it. And it also encouraged the congregation then to put out the money to buy a more, excuse me, more up-to-date computer system. So that can handle this. The old computer system we had, it was maxing out the GPU trying to broadcast even low quality video. We're doing 2 streams, one to YouTube and one to Facebook simultaneously, and we're barely using 14% of the CPU.
yeah.
So much improved.
Yeah, I would have to close everything else out. I couldn't leave one other screen up, or it totally messed up the video. It'd be all herky-jerky and stuff.
And you pretty much were
Take a
forced,
drink of your coffee. Wet your throat.
sorry, asthma. Forced to only do one stream at a time. That is, choose YouTube or Facebook. You couldn't do both, and you couldn't do high definition.
Right.
Now our cameras are still limited. That is, they are able to only do 1080p. It'd be nice to be able to do 4K, but then we'd have to get different cameras, and we'd have to upgrade our software again.
Right.
So eventually we may do that.
Yeah.
So as we get the money for it.
But what was cool about the pandemic was you could visit other churches, like friends of ours, actually really good friends of my parents, but they're like around our age. They live in Illinois now, and they are going to a church, and they had invited me to their church online, and I would watch it before we went to our church. And so it was really kind of cool to see, hear the songs that other people sing in their churches, and
Right.
hear sermons from different pastors and things like that. So,
And these are things that are continuing now with the pandemic coming to an end. That is, churches will continue to do online, and online stuff will be more common now for other activities. For instance, it had a big impact on medical care. That is, there'd been some movings in that direction, but the pandemic really sped up the change to where you can do a lot of things now just online. You don't have to go and see your doctor in person. You can just call them on your phone and talk to them video and get minor sorts of things taken care of. It saves both him and you a lot of time, and for that matter, money.
And therapy too.
Therapy, yes.
Yeah, our daughter was doing therapy on her phone. She sees her psychiatrist on her phone. Because you don't really have to be face to face to do that kind of stuff. You know, there are things where a doctor needs to like touch you and be like, "Oh yes, you do have a lump there."
Yeah.
You know, but
and if you need surgery, they can't do that through the computer yet.
Yeah, just like we can't send you catered food through the computer, so we're sorry.
Yes.
But
until replicators get better.
Yes. So, but anyway, so a lot of really positive change has come out of the pandemic. And I think to a certain degree, some of the unrest that we're seeing, I think is going to be good in the end because people are going to realize that we have a good thing going on in this country, that it's not all bad. And of course, you know, improvements need to be made on certain things, but that it's not all bad and we're not evil just because we're Americans. And I think that that's going to be the end result, a lot of this unrest and ugliness and all that.
But people because they're comfortable with the way things are, when something disrupts their comfort zone, they become unhappy, and they will try to cling to the old ways of doing things.
You can come join us, Judy, if you want. We're talking about why people fear change. Do you want to come up here with us? Okay. We'll scooch over.
Yeah.
Here, give her that chair.
Yeah, I will.
So we have
a surprise guest.
Let me move all this so I have a chair.
Yeah.
Oreo, stop. Oreo does not like change.
No.
So he may complain that Judy's here, but that's too bad. Judy's my
your
friend.
shirt is going to fade out.
Oh,
funny! I look all fancy.
You got a green shirt, so
a sparkly shirt.
It looks
the
sparkly
green,
and fancy.
green. You kind of fade
You didn't
out,
have to
that's
dress so
fine.
fancy just for us.
Yeah.
So this is Judy.
Hi.
She's our friend we've been friends a lot of years. How
A
long?
long time.
And
How old
you've
is
been-
Sam?
Almost 30. Well,
Wow.
Sam's almost 31.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm not in the, there I am.
Yeah, and you've joined us here before.
Yes.
It's been a while, though.
Yeah, it has been a while.
Yep. So what kind of change don't you like, Judy?
I don't really like any kind of change. It disrupts my peace. It does. It disrupts my peace.
Yeah.
And I'm better at adjusting because I know God's with me, and whatever is changing is going to be okay.
Yeah.
But
Give me some
initially,
camera space here.
it's disconcerting.
Yes.
There we go.
I like familiarity.
Yeah.
And I think that's a human thing.
That is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I get excited by some kinds of change. Like big change, not a fan, because my life has changed a lot with moving a lot as a child. So those were big changes. But I like tinkering around the edge change. Like with my job, I like to try different things, new things, kind of keeps it exciting. And I like to, I don't know, there's a certain level of change that I'm really comfortable with. But the big change, like, oh, we're moving to Antarctica. It's like, didn't see that coming.
Moving is not a...
No, moving's not fun.
No.
Like when I changed jobs, I didn't want to change jobs, but I was excited about learning new stuff. Same thing when I was in school. It was stressful,
Yeah.
but I was excited about learning new stuff. So I know what you mean when you say, you know, some changes are exciting.
Yeah.
Like, I do not want to change schools. I do not want to change off my grade level. But things within my grade level changing, that's fine. Or, you know, trying new programs and stuff, I'm fine with. But
How about moving from Windows 10 to 11?
Oh. I don't even want to see it because changing to Windows 10 wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be because we changed our whole system at work. And it was pretty user-friendly and kind of self-explanatory for most things. And I didn't even realize I had it on my home computer until my friend said, don't you have, what's her name? Cortana? Cortana?
oh, Cortana.
I'm like, yeah, I didn't know what that was. Windows 10. So that was okay. But if
Okay.
you would have told me we're changing to Windows 10, and I No, so just kind
So we'll just change things on the slide.
Of course, not all computers can handle Windows 11.
We were just talking about that.
Yeah,
The only
this is
one that
the only
can
one
do
in the
this.
building that can do that is this one, because it's new enough. The one in my office is 5 years old. This is 6 years old.
yeah, it's
They
antiquated.
can't
right?
handle it, and my one at home can't handle it either. So, but then the machines are admittedly getting old, and so it's time to think in terms of upgrading them anyway. So, but human beings, and it's not just I mentioned this earlier. It's not just an
Oh,
age-related.
my brother's watching. He said, "Hi, Judy."
Hi.
my cousin and my brother. It's a family show.
Your children are beautiful, Dean.
And his grandbabies.
Grown up. Yeah.
Yes. Oh my gosh.
Beautiful family you have.
But it's not just an age-related thing. That is, there's a tendency, talked about this earlier, to think that old people tend to only think about the past all the time, while it's young people who are thinking about the present or the future. And I don't think that's entirely correct. I think it's some people just seem to always be stuck in the past and always thinking about their past. But I think that any age can be accustomed to change and be happy with it. My grandfather was enamored of every new thing that came along.
That's how Sherman is.
And he just loved it. Of course, he was an engineer, so maybe that's part of it,
Sure,
but
that has
still,
something to do.
it does help. Also, those of us that like science fiction tend to enjoy new stuff.
Well, my grandpa, my mom's dad,
Yeah.
loved new things. His VCR never blinked 12 o'clock. He would figure it out, and he died in '98. So there was still. I mean, he didn't get to experience all the stuff all the new things since then. But he would have loved it. He would have loved DVRs, and electric cars, I think, would have intrigued him. But my grandmother, his wife, not about change at all. Like, she got her RN in 1927, and nursing did not change for the next, till she died
50
in
years.
90, more than that, 60 years, yeah.
Yeah.
So, that's one of the reasons she died, was because she wasn't taking her blood pressure pills correctly and had a bunch of mini strokes, till finally she had one that finished her off. But, because she knew how to take her blood pressure medication, but she wasn't doing it right. But she knew. So, anyway, so some people they just think, when I was a kid, we ate mud and we liked it.
So you're getting mud too.
Yeah, exactly.
But animals that can't adapt will die out.
Yeah.
And so, as much as we may dislike change, it's something that we need to not resist, but rather embrace and adapt to it.
I'm still learning how to do that.
Yeah.
It's a process, but I'm better.
But have you been that way your whole life?
Yes.
Resistant to change?
Yes.
Yeah.
As far back as I can remember, because we were so consistent. When things started to change, I didn't understand why they were changing. I didn't want them to change. The changes that were made, I didn't like, and then it changed again, and then it was just changes after that. We moved, and then when I moved out here, that was a huge change. It was awful.
Well, a huge culture shock, too.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
New York and California are not at all alike.
Not at
Vanessa
all.
found that going the other way.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, she would say horrible things about New Yorkers when she was back there. Probably should have kept her mouth shut, but she didn't.
No.
And she didn't really win any friends or influence people while she was
didn't.
there. But she's used to a kinder, gentler kind of life than she
More
got
laid
there.
back.
But what's interesting is I was looking back on my memories. It's been 8 years since she lived in Long Island.
Wow.
Yeah. And I was just looking back at my memories of flying back there when she was in the hospital. And one of my comments on the plane was, ran into my first Jersey boy. Now I get where some of my matter-of-factness comes from. And so, and I noticed that I had some comfort level when I was in New York, because I'd been exposed enough to that abruptness that although I really noticed it because I've lived on the West Coast so long, that but it brought some level of comfort to me. Like, okay, people still do talk like this, and that's why I can be kind of a little brash and abrupt. So yeah, just yeah. But it doesn't fly well with the West Coast people.
Well, they think, I don't want to say they think slower, but that's what I thought when I first moved out here.
Oh.
Why does it take you guys so long to talk?
Yes.
Because we have to come up with kind words. We can't just say what we're thinking, Judy.
Well, we're
takes
just
too
not in a
long.
hurry. We're
Yeah.
laid back.
Yes.
Yeah.
Much different.
Yeah, it's
We're
a
busy
definite
California
difference.
dreaming.
Yeah,
So
there are definitely differences.
And then too, I think New York with the weather, it's cold.
Yeah.
It's hi, you're greeting people. Hi, hey, how you doing? I'll talk to you later.
Yes.
If you really want to say something to me, you got to say it quick because I'm
yeah, I'm
It's
freezing.
too cold.
I'm going outside. I'm going in the house, or I'm getting on the subway. I'm getting on the bus, whatever. But yeah, so yeah, I've been like that all my life.
Yeah.
Sherman's very spontaneous, and I'm not, because that's changed to me. I have
Why are
to.
you ringing?
I don't know.
Hang up on whoever it is.
Well, she should know better.
I was gonna say.
Well, she's probably in a different time zone.
I'm sure she is.
So just text her and tell her we're webcasting.
Yeah.
So I'm learning how to. Oh, let me fix my hair. Hi. I'm learning how to embrace it, but the initial reaction is like, okay, like with everybody moving,
Yeah.
it's a big change.
Yeah. And those kind of changes we don't like.
I find I don't like it when people move away from me. I was always the one that moved. So it was an adventure. It was something new. My dad always presented it as you're going to be able to make new friends. We're going to see new things. And it'll be exciting. It'll be an adventure. So someone else has gone off on an adventure I don't get to go on. And I don't like that. So I get really sad for a while. Like I get super quiet and really sad about them leaving because I don't handle it well.
Right.
No.
And so, but I think a lot of that is because I was never the one that stayed all the time. So it's funny to listen to my girls talk about never having moved. Vanessa moves. Oh my gosh,
She seems to enjoy it.
that chick loves to move. But our house is their house. That's where they grew up,
Right.
and that's all they know, and so it's their constant. And it's interesting to hear them talk about that because I don't have that. I had my grandparents' houses, which is what I really consider my constant. Kind of my hometowns is where both my grandmothers lived because I didn't really have one. So except for like Havasu, I lived there for 6 years, so I kind of relate to that, kind of like a hometown. But
Yeah.
so keep going.
keep going.
No dead airspace.
Nope. So anyway, something that puzzles me is the resistance to technological change. I mentioned this earlier. It may have been before I got the microphone working today. I avoid commenting on people's stupidity on Facebook
So do I.
because it's pointless. Because they're not posting because they want information. They're posting because it's emotional. But the thing that puzzles me as an electric car owner is the hatred some people have for electric cars. And I saw 2 memes this week of people posting things that simply aren't true.
What did the memes say?
Well, one was a picture of a bunch of cars out in a field,
yeah.
and it's in France. And the claim was that they were in the field there and weren't being used because the batteries were no good anymore. It cost too much to replace the batteries. And of course, that's not the reason those cars are in a field in France. It's because it was a ride-sharing service that went belly up. It had nothing to do with the fact that they were electric cars. It was just poor business. And
Has anybody ever driven by a junkyard?
yeah, there's
Like,
junkyards
that's a lot
or
of,
junkyards.
yeah, like especially a pick apart.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because they're all separated. They're not in stacks or anything like that. They're all separated out so you can go and pick your parts.
Yeah, and then the other thing that I saw was somebody talking about how electric cars are not a good deal and they're horribly expensive and this and that and the other thing. And the numbers were all off. It is, they're claiming it costs $1.13 per kilowatt hour for electricity. I don't know where you live that you'd be paying that much.
A lot.
Even in California, we pay about 21 cents a
Yeah.
kilowatt hour. The average
And everything's expensive in
Yeah.
California.
The average in the U.S. is around 13, and that's at peak levels. I mean, if it's off hours, then it's even cheaper. So that was completely wrong. Then the amount of electricity that it takes to recharge an electric car was off. Also, the amount of electricity that's available in your average house was off. I mean, all the numbers were wrong by significant margins. But I resisted the urge to correct it because, again, they were not interested in what is true. It was just, this is how they feel. And they're reacting against this new thing because they're afraid of the new thing.
Silence your phone.
I know.
One of my greatest joys, I got to participate in this morning as we drove. We were in Costco, and as we drove out, all those poor souls that have to sit in line to gas up their vehicles and pay all that money. I'm like, bye, as I drive practically for free. Because really, it costs us about $50 a month to charge both of our electric cars. The only time we need to recharge them is if we're on a long trip.
Yeah.
And then it's still cheaper than gas. I mean, the most we've spent to go 300 miles is about $12 or $13.
Right.
Yeah. So put $12 in your big V8 SUV and see how you get to the corner. Yeah, it's like spitting in the ocean. Yeah.
Yeah.
You get to the corner and have to turn around and go back and fill up again.
But a lot of times people are afraid of change simply because they don't understand what the change is. And so you see a resistance to certain new technologies because, well, some of the people that are afraid of the vaccine, it's because they don't understand how vaccines work or they don't understand how this particular vaccine works. And so rather than try to learn how it functions, they just freak out and don't want to do it. That is a way of reacting to change, but it may not be the most effective and most healthy choice that you're making. People are afraid of nuclear energy. And again, it's because most people don't understand it.
And people think of
They
the
think
50s
radiation.
movies, yeah.
Yes.
And that, you know, we're
And
going to
somehow
have...
those were documentaries.
Right, yeah. Well, like the guy that said, so I read the book 1984, but, well, things were really bad back then. Like it was a history book. But, yeah, we just had this discussion actually Wednesday night. We were talking about, you know, California going all electric. We're like, they're going to make all the lawnmowers electric. You won't be able to have a gas lawnmower, a gas leaf blower. My question was generators, because the point of a generator is to generate electricity. But how are you gonna generate electricity if you don't, because you use a generator when you don't have electricity. Right. So what are you supposed to do? Build a little wood fire in there? So that was kind of the question I had Wednesday night that we were talking about. But
slow-moving problems, human beings are always very good at solving those. That is, there's never been a slow-moving problem that we have not been able to solve. And so climate change and all that's associated with that, that's a slow-moving problem. We will find solutions to it. It is fixable.
Sudden things like a pandemic, a little more challenging.
A little bit more challenging, but even that, we managed to do it in record time. So technology is getting better, and so we can fix even fast-moving problems in relatively fast time. But that's the advantage of being willing to adapt to change. That is recognizing, okay, we're going to have to do something different. Let's try this. If you can't adapt to change, you're going to die.
What is it? What do they say? If you don't learn how to bend, you break.
Yes.
Something like that.
Yeah.
Something like that.
Right. And change is one of the biggest constants in life.
Oh, yeah.
And we can either try to resist it or we can try to embrace it. I'm amused by people that don't like ebooks, and they say, well, I like the smell of real books. And my thought is, I have never picked up a book for the purpose of sniffing it.
I do.
The reason I read books is because I want to read the words. I really don't care what the format is.
I smell books when I pick up the
So
new book.
keep
I
an
smell
old
it.
book, and when you're
I don't want always an old
and you
book
sniff
smell.
that, and then
No,
go
You
to
don't want
reading
the
your
dusty,
ebook.
musky smell, right?
Yeah. When you go to Barnes and Noble, that's one of the pleasures of Barnes and Noble is you can smell the books.
Yes.
So
I'm not opposed to ebooks, but I still like the handheld.
Yeah.
Ebooks are convenient when you're traveling, and it's less bulk. You know?
and when you don't have enough bookshelf space.
Yes.
that too.
But
But if I have an opportunity to hold a book in my hand, I still do it.
Really?
Yeah, I still do it.
And my preference anymore is for versions of things because it takes less space. Of course, I'm running out of space in my house for books. I keep having to build new bookshelves, and they keep getting filled because, despite my preference for ebooks, I keep accumulating
have
the other
books.
kinds as well.
well, because your mother takes you to the used
Yes,
bookstore whenever you go to
every
Ohio.
time I go to Ohio, she takes me to this used bookstore, and I always come home with another 20 or 30 books. So I can't help myself.
It's one of the reasons why he flies Southwest. We don't have to pay for the extra baggage. He goes with one suitcase and comes back with 2 checked ones.
Because you still like books.
I still like
Apparently.
books. Well, of any kind. I'm not picky.
Right.
I mean, I'm sure people resisted the change from scrolls to codexes.
It's like scrolls are so easy. You just keep going. And books, you have to turn the page. What an awful technology. I like to do that when I'm thinking about a change in our society. I always think back, okay, what was it probably like when this happened? Like people's biggest argument against electric cars is, well, you have to sit and wait for its charge. Well, that's only if you're traveling, and with a Tesla, it's only 20 or 30 minutes usually.
But if it's your normal day-to-day driving, you just plug it in at the end of the day like you
Yeah,
do
right.
your cell phone.
That's what, like we ran all around town today, and then we'll just plug it in tonight, and we've got another full tank for the morning, which is not the case for people with gas-powered cars, because no matter how long your gasoline car sits in your driveway, it's not going to get more gas. Actually, it'll get less because it'll evaporate if you leave it there long enough.
Yes.
But
And
anyway,
I'm not sure that sitting in the line at Costco to get your car filled with gas is a whole lot
more saving.
shorter
Right.
shorter time-wise
shorter.
than
Not.
waiting for the supercharger to charge
Right.
your Tesla.
But anyway, so what I think back to is, okay, so at the advent of cars, how many people with horses said, well, you've got to find a gas station first, because they were about as few and far between as chargers were for a while, although you can find them most anywhere now. But so first you got to find a gas station. When with my horse, I just strap a feed bag on him. He can eat and walk at the
Right.
same time.
And poop and
Uh-huh,
stuff.
Right.
Yep,
You
exactly.
can eat weeds by the side
I don't
of the
have to
road.
rotate his tires. I don't need to do an oil change. When he dies or when he's too bad off, I shoot him and get another one. You know, sell him to recycle him as glue. But sorry, horse owners. But that's kind of what I imagine. And so when people say to me, "Yeah, well, electric cars," I go, "Well, think about when gas-powered cars first came out. What were the problems with those?" I mean, we have a story in our book about the woman who invented windshield wipers, and you had to actually like move it with your own hand. Yeah. So in the Tesla, you get enough rain on the windshield, like when you start to, like at the point where you need to turn on your windshield wipers, they turn themselves on when you set them to automatic. It's pretty awesome. It rained the other day, and I was like, I wonder if they're working, because buying a used one, we don't always know if the sensors are all
Right.
up to speed. So we hadn't seen it really work before.
But it
And
hadn't
so,
really rained much
yeah, it hadn't
either.
rained much since we bought it. So then it rained enough that the windshield wipers came out. I was like, yay, they work. And you can still operate them manually. You're not stuck, but
Yes.
I want them to work automatically. I don't want to have to think about it. So,
Yeah, you get very accustomed to the new technology very quickly.
yeah. Like there's things my Leaf can't do that my Tesla can do. So I have to, when I get in the car, go, okay, now you're driving the dumber version of a Tesla.
Yeah.
Yes. Have to pay attention and not drive into the car in front of me. Dean says I like my gas and oil. Well, because you work for the oil companies, that's why.
Yes, and also it's a lot cheaper in Texas than it is
Yes.
in California. If you're paying $4.25 a gallon for gasoline, you'd be looking at an electric car too.
Yeah.
Or at least asking me for a ride because it's cheaper.
Yes.
Oh, somebody offered me, I had to give somebody a ride one time, and they offered me gas money. I go, no, that's okay, it's electric. She goes, well, do you want some money for that? I'm like, It's not worth it. It's like, already
You're good. You're all good.
Yep.
Yep.
I'll have to. Yeah, I was pretty impressed with being in your car. I was in Eric's first,
Yeah.
and kind of frightened at first because
Yeah,
it
the
was
acceleration
so
is.
don't need you
Uh-huh.
pretty much.
Yeah.
And but after maybe 10 minutes I was like, okay, I like this. And then being in the car with you, us going down below and up to Tehachapi and all that stuff, I'm like, this is pretty sweet.
Yeah,
Yep.
they're very nice.
What I have noticed is I don't get as tired driving at night with the Tesla because it doesn't require as much of your brain power when you're using the auto drive. And it's not full auto drive yet. It just stays in the lane and
Starts and stops.
Yeah, it starts and stops behind other vehicles. But what I've noticed is that I don't get as tired as quickly because with a regular car, you have to really be paying attention for somebody, cutting you off, and you still have to pay attention with the Tesla, but
Yeah,
not
you
as
have
much.
to supervise.
You have to supervise
That's
it,
a good way
but
to say it.
it's much less taxing on your brain. Because one of the things I noticed was when I get really, really tired, my eyes start getting all wonky. If he drives, I'm not ready to go to sleep. I'm not sleep tired. I'm just road tired.
Right.
So when I can sit in the passenger seat and I'm fine because I'm not thinking about the road anymore.
Yeah.
So what I've noticed is the Tesla relieves some of that brain energy, and so I can
makes
go
sense.
for a lot longer. And then when I was really tired coming home last Saturday, because it was a really long day, I took care of Luca all day, and then we went to Vanessa's dress fitting, and then we went out to dinner, and it just got later and later and later. And when I was driving home, I was really super tired, but I didn't have to worry as much about dozing off, like doing this thing, because the car wasn't going anywhere. The car was going to keep doing what it does, even if I did kind of do that. So I wasn't going to fully fall asleep, but just I was tired
You
enough
don't
that
want
I
to be
could
in that
have.
kind of a video, huh?
No, I don't want somebody videoing me like.
person sleeping in their car again.
Yeah, and eventually it takes away your self-driving privileges if you don't move the wheel.
Yes, it does.
Which I found out. I've been put in the self-driving doghouse a couple of times because I wasn't paying attention. But it's great if you're stuck in traffic.
Yeah,
You
stop
just
and
sit
go
there.
traffic's a lot easier to handle.
And I can look at all the things I don't normally get to look at, which is one of my things that I enjoy doing when I drive. If I'm like in stop and go traffic, like when you go under an underpass, I like to look up in the corners and stuff where you don't normally get to look, or look down at the road and see the gum and stuff, and just see kind of how the road is made. And yeah, so I can do that in the Tesla, just creeping along, because I don't have to worry about the car stopping in front of me because the car worries about that.
Okay.
And then when that car goes, the Tesla goes. So I can pay attention. We had to go off the freeway on the 14, so we were going through the canyons, went through Escondido Canyon, and it's just beautiful in there.
As northbound was shut down by
Right.
accident.
And so we drove down through there, and it was just gorgeous. And I got to look at all the old houses and the barns that are like falling apart and stuff, because the car was doing the work for me. All I do is jiggle the steering wheel once in a while and let it know I was still there. So, but yeah, it makes sightseeing a lot easier.
Yeah.
But
Okay.
Very good.
Yeah. But I know for myself with Bible study,
ooh, we only have 2 minutes.
we're that close?
We are. It's
Oh, wow.
4:58.
I have not used a physical dead tree version of a Bible.
tree.
Dead tree?
Dead tree version in probably 10 years or more. That is, I've done everything electronically for probably the last 10 years. I haven't used a dead tree version of a Bible in at least 10 years, probably longer. And I wouldn't want to use a dead tree version.
Okay.
So
Well, I know it's improved my studying ability with my Bible reading and with my Bible study and stuff because it's audio. So I'm getting ready in the morning. Because I'm alone, except for him, but I'm alone, and so I can focus completely on that while I'm brushing my teeth, curling my hair, putting on my makeup, and all those kind of mindless activities. So I'm much more consistent with my Bible reading and stuff. Because
And
of that.
research is a lot quicker. As you're used to your research time, most of it was spent just finding the information.
And stabbing it with a long pole and watching what fell to the ground.
Yeah, last week, when I
2
was
weeks
in,
ago.
2 weeks ago, when I was in my junior and senior year of college and then graduate school, came in this red box. It was a bunch of little cards similar to computer cards, and they had holes in them. And you had this metal rod that you could use. And anyway, you would put the information on the cards in such a way that when you wanted to find something, you'd stick the rod through whichever hole, pick it up, and whatever's left is what you needed to
Gotcha.
use. And it's just an odd thing that
Gravity version of research.
yeah. So, and of course, nowadays that would be ludicrous. But
Sounds ludicrous.
You should make a video of it though, just
yeah,
how you
I
did
still,
that.
I still have it. I still have it. It's up in the closet somewhere. Well, the things were relatively expensive, so I didn't throw it away, even though I haven't used it in
Might be something
40
the museum
years.
might be interested in. The research museum.
But see, if I was resistant to change, I'd still be doing that, and that would not work very well.
That doesn't.
No, I only had 6 months to write 3 books. I would not have been able to do it using that system.
That's true.
So,
Okay.
okay.
So,
well,
what's our topic for next week?
next week is where to go. It's on the.
Oh, well, because I'm
Website.
on the screen here. Wait, where's
there it is.
announcements? Up?
Up. No, right in there.
Where?
Right there.
Oh,
Click
sideways.
on that. Yeah.
Okay.
Why does freedom scare some people?
Okay.
Okay.
So,
Okay.
That'll be next week.
why does
Lord
freedom
willing.
scare you?
Yes.
Okay, so we're going to say goodbye until next week. Same bat time, same bat station. We're here every Saturday, except for the Saturdays we're not at 4 o'clock. And we're saying goodbye from Judy, Robin, Ruth, and Oreo. We'll see you next week. Bye. Wave bye, Oreo. Bye-bye.
That's so funny. My shirt is all. Why is it?
Because it's green.
Green
Because you're
screen.
on screen.
Oh, because of
So
this.
yeah, look at you. You're
Yeah,
invisible.
you're the
Okay.
same
I'm like, but why? Okay.
screen because
There
this
we
isn't
go.
what we actually have back
There
there.
we go. Okay.
Jan thought we were in our living
your
room
house.
doing this. Yeah. We're like,
How
yeah.
are they?
Fine. They're gonna be here tomorrow.
Okay.
All right, guys, I'm out of here.
Hey.
I'll go to the store. I put the cake in the fridge.
Okay.
Hi, Stacy.
Hey. Oh, that's why he's growling. Hey. Hey. Speaking of not liking change, chill out.
There it is. That needs to go away.
Hey. He growled a little bit at Judy. Too.
There.
Oh no, he'll bite. Hey.
Okay.
Stop. Okay, putting in the stream.
In the stream.
That was nice timing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you got to participate.